Do you have hundreds of screenshots just like me? Do you want to do something with them? Do you want to get better painting digitally? If so, come follow me on my process of sorting out what to paint and what to change. My name is James Ambrose, and I am an art teacher and have been using Procreate, the program we'll be demonstrating today, for about 4 years, and I've been using Photoshop many more years. That said, you can use any digital program you want. So I wanted to do something with all my screenshots, in particular from Hogwarts Legacy, for a couple things. This will help get rid of the empty canvas syndrome, which will make it a lot easier for you to draw an image. Now to start with, I've set this canvas up to 17 by 10 inches at 300 dpi. This will allow me to zoom in and have a decent amount of detail and a decent amount of layers, because with Procreate, the larger the image, the less layers available for your painting. However, over time, you'll get used to working with less layers, and it'll actually help you. So you're not fumbling through tons of different layers that I used to do in Photoshop. Way too many layers sometimes. Now, in regards to brushes, I try not to use too many of the unique brushes. My favorites tend to be the flat brush and the syrup brush, but during this image I found out that the script brush worked a little bit better and has a higher resolution when you zoom in on it. So I'll probably be switching more to that later on. So to start off with, I set this up as a 17 by 10 inch image with 300 dpi. This gave me 36 to 39 layers, give or take, to work with in Procreate, which is still plenty enough layers to work with. Could use more, but once you get used to it, 39 is definitely plenty of layers to use. Now, one tip on the reference, I like zooming out on my image at the beginning as far as possible, so that my reference image and the image I'm working on end up being the same size on your iPad. That way it helps you notice the scale of your image, compare that to the reference. It just helps you lay everything down fairly accurately to the screenshot or whatever reference you're going to be using. This helps also with your colors. I started out with a flat brush with 100% opacity. That way my entire focus at the beginning was just covering up the white space of the canvas. So using a screenshot to help us start with our artwork, it helps start the image off a lot quicker than starting from scratch. We already have the idea that we want to do pretty much in place. We've got a color palette to work with. And right off the bat, I decided to change a few things from the screenshot. I added in the cat and I adjusted the right side buildings. Additionally, I have been changing the colors. They're not going to be exactly like the screenshot. Hopefully it's going to be a little bit more tied in. With a screenshot, they have access to millions of colors and they don't really need to have anything stand out on purpose in any one certain area. But for this image, I wanted the front left pole and the cat to stand out first, and direct your eye from left to right in the image. Now you'll notice while I'm painting this, I am not working one section. I am trying to work the entire canvas all at the same time. That way I'm not bogged down by small details and getting lost in areas that you will not ultimately see. Or when you do look at it, you'll only see a little section of it, and then the rest of your image could be affected by having one area too detailed, or conversely, having too much detail all over that can't really tell it anyways on such a small image. I like zooming out on the image. Then I'm painting to match that of my reference. That way it helps block in the image a lot easier. This helps with scale. It'll help with figuring out what areas to work on first and where to continue on. We are now on the flowers. What I went in and drew about 10 to 12 unique flowers, front and left. Zoomed in fairly close, made a decent amount of detail, and then copied and pasted them and flipped it horizontally. And did that about 2 to 3 times. And that's how I ended up with such a decent amount of flowers in such a short amount of time. I also went in and adjusted them, put a few on the multiply layer and threw them farther back in the layer set so that it looks like they're farther in the painting. And it appears that I did a lot more work on the flowers than actually necessary. Kind of like the idea of actually in the video game where you would see a field of flowers, but not each one of them is unique. They're just slightly adjusted. That's how I use this one. Additionally, I've set this up in a couple different layers. The light sources are their own layer. The hills and background are one layer. The sky is a separate layer, so I'm roughly working anywhere from 4 to 6 layers at once. I try not to have too many of them. That way I don't get lost in figuring out which layer to go to. Plus it keeps the file size down a little bit easier and just overall easier to manage. And then flipping it horizontally, you can double the amount of flowers and have it still look differently. I then went back in there, readjusted, cropped it a little bit, and then ended up with a decent amount of flowers that all pretty much look different from each other. If you like what you're seeing so far, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below with any of your tips or anything else that you're having issues with that I should cover in the next video. I added a few extra details with the light. Had some bugs up there, so maybe the cat is looking up at the bugs. I had a few texture notes on the ground, a little bit too early on, but they tended to last towards the end of the painting, surprisingly. I did have to go in a couple times to redo the wall on the right side. And then I had a separate layer for the sign, which is on the right side, which I put my name towards the end of the painting. Additionally, on a separate layer, I used a yellow and airbrush to make it look like there's a light halo effect around the lights, and put that on multiply, reduce the opacity so they could see through it fairly easy, and then I turned it off just to make sure that I'm not color picking in that area and it would throw the colors off. So later on I'll turn that back on. As you can see, I'm still trying to work everything pretty much at the same time. On this, I tend to change this up during each painting, but on this one I worked the details in the back left, and I worked towards the right and went forward on my final pass of details. And then I noticed the right buildings needed extra work because those are the ones I did not copy exactly from the reference point for some reason or another. My idea on this one was some type of wizard meeting in the building on the right with the open door because of the 4 brooms already against the wall and then the one floating by itself in the foreground. That would add a little bit more interest. Now, occasionally you will see me turning layers on and off, especially with the light posts, so that they're on their own layer. It makes it easier for me to adjust. And when I turn the layer off, it allows me to see what is around it and see if I need to erase anything or adjust anything else. Now this is digital, so we are able to go back in and readjust anything as necessary. I went in with the wand tool and readjusted the buildings that I'd already painted in earlier. They didn't quite fit with the positions correctly, didn't really follow the vanishing line very well, especially the rooftops. So those actually get adjusted a couple times on this. And actually go over the grass several times, generally adding the darker grass and then going over it with the lighter colors. This way it gives a layered effect, much like a natural grass. A lot of this being the fine hairbrush, and I would go back in with the go back in again with the script brush, adding individual strands of grass so that everything doesn't look the same. And while you're here, please scroll down below, check out the link to my Patreon page, where you'll find more examples of my work and the chance to purchase a print of this image. I also thought it'd be interesting to add a little elf into the background that you will see right now more than you actually will in the final image. Spending probably a little bit too much time on it, but that would be interesting. Having the elf look at the cat behind the flowers. Tried to add a little bit more interest to the painting. That way on your second or third read of the image, you'd see a little bit more information. What I did there was also create a multiply layer, which instantly adds more shadow to it. And then I would go back in, I erase part of the multiply layer, and this will allow for instant light effect on the image. Not so sure how well the elf came out. I had to adjust the buildings on the right side. I noticed they were a little bit off. Adjust the color a little bit as well. Still trying to work the entire painting at the same time. Even though I'm using reference, I did adjust quite a lot. Just thought it would be a better way to show that was my image versus just a copy and paste of the screenshot. Now with the field, I went back in several times adding additional detail. I never want to spend too much time in one section. Otherwise, it gets built up in one area faster than the other. I also went in there, added my name to the light post. I figured there was too much detail on the original screenshot in order for me to paint it. It just didn't seem like I needed that much information on there. So I just put a little bit of information. So overall, this image took me about 10 hours, give or take, to create in Procreate. Feel free to like, subscribe, and comment down below with your suggestions on what I should do next. I plan on doing a series of these. My next one might be God of War Ragnarok. I have a lot of screenshots of that game, and I found a few that piqued my interest. If there's anything else, or you know of a screenshot online I could check out, let me know in the comments section. Well, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.